Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of the Radix Roundtable. I'm Adam Simmons, the Chief Strategy Officer at RDX Works, and today I'm joined by Matthew Hine, the Chief Product Officer, and Russell Harvey, the Chief Technology Officer. Today, we're going to be covering some special stuff around the wallet that, of course, was shown off the vision of everything we've got planned there at RadFi. I hope you've all watched that, and we've had some amazing questions off the back of it that we're going to go into some detail on today. To kick things off, though, Matt, Russell, obviously it's been a lot of work getting into a place where we could have showed this off at RadFi. The response has been great from my side, but to both of you, have you had any personal highlights of responses you've seen or reactions?
Yeah, without calling out anything in particular, because there have been a lot of really specific ones that have been good, but the general character of the feedback has been really cool for the development team. Just because we've been working on a lot of these concepts for so long. Like, as we talked about at RadFi, the wallet that we showed off isn't just the wallet. It's a lot of stuff that's built into how the Radix platform works. So we have this huge number of people on the team that have been working on various aspects that underpin being able to show off a wallet demo like that. So, we've had the concept of what we wanted the wallet to accomplish for a long time, but getting to the point where you could say, yep, we really think that this is going to be buildable. All the technologies that we need to provide this are going to be on the Babylon mainnet. That was the point where we felt like, all right, now is where this is a good time for us to really go off and show it off to the world. And so what's been awesome about it is that people seeing it haven't just been like, oh, cool wallet, guys, great, what's the next thing? It's people have been like kind of screen by screen getting what we were trying to accomplish with it. So like, oh, wow, like logging in that way is so much better. And being able to control my information, it's so much better. The transaction manifest and being able to put guarantees in here, that's going to protect me against all these different kinds of things. Like, it's like people have immediately clicked with the reasons why we thought these things were important to build into the platform and into the wallet. So, again, this is really gratifying for the team that's been putting into a whole lot of work and is going to be continuing to putting a whole lot of work into this over the coming months.
And for me, it's two things. One is for the people who have been, aware of Radix before. You get like, I get it now. Now I see the scope of what you guys are doing. Whereas before, right, a lot of times you get caught in minutia of like how the mechanics of some specific thing will work, and you get a lot of these. Okay, now I understand. I finally get what you guys are doing. This is gigantic. This is huge. This is the game changer. The second one is just for people who are either totally not crypto activated at all, or have like, I don't know, I owned a thing on a centralized, I got something on Coinbase, but when I got into this MetaMask thing, it was too crazy. They've all come back and said, oh, I would totally use that wallet. Please release that right now. And then I'm in, I'm happy at that point. So, we certainly hoped for that reaction, but it's been way beyond my expectations of how many people, like friends I've sent to, are like, okay, now I understand what you're working on. Yes, I would do crypto if it worked like that. Which is what we're going for, right? Mainstream adoption. And to hear from people who would be mainstream adopters and not early adopters to go, yeah, I would use that. That's tremendous.
Think of anything in crypto where you could show that to someone and be like, hey, just watch this video. And they're like, oh, that's cool. I'd use that. Like anything in crypto at this point has been like, wait, we're going to have to sit down and talk about this over beers sometime, or yeah, it's not for me.
My favorite reaction.
And I will sit over your shoulder when you do it the first time. I will onboard you sitting over your shoulder at your computer for 2 hours.
My favorite reaction so far is for many years, my grandma has always liked trying to explain what I do to her friends and like, Adam's doing some really cool stuff in the technology space and things like that. She watched it. She didn't get some of what Piers was doing, but you'll be pleased to know, Matt, my gran is now in your fan club. She was like, that Matthew guy, he really explained it well. I could imagine myself using that wallet. I get it. It made sense. So
I will endeavor to not violate her trust.
You can supply that.
I will. That Christmas present sorted immediately there. So we've had some really great follow-up questions in both the Radix community, outside of that, and quite a lot of them have been around kind of the personas and identity things that we've been showing at RadFi. And so I think one of the big ones to clear up for people is, how do personas and accounts relate to dApps you're connected to? Like, what's on Ledger, what's off Ledger?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because now the beta net has just come out and we've got a bunch of extra documentation and things in the knowledge base. Like, there's more information. So, immediately after RadFi, it was not obvious about some of these things, because what we showed is very much from the user's point of view. From the user's point of view, this is very simple. It's like, I connect to a website, I pick a persona, I log in with it. Cool. But I think we've gotten a lot of really good questions from developers who's like, wait, what does this really mean? And like, what's the relationship between these things? So just kind of like a quick summary of this thing. We've got a few different concepts. So the persona is something that is in your wallet. It's basically, you can kind of think of it as like your business card. It's like, it represents some version of you. So I might have like my personal persona. I might have my work persona. I might have my crazy DeFi GGen persona. And for each one of those personas, it have personal information that I like associating with that when I'm connecting websites as that version of me. And so whenever I connect to a website, I can kind of, it might say, hey, I need your email address. I'm like, cool, you get my email address for my DGen persona or whatever it is. So that's all held in your wallet. This is like a relationship between your wallet and the DApp website. Now, when you're logging in, though, you need to provide some proof of where you're logging in. And this is where it gets into the kind of the cool mechanism. It's kind of like Apple's passkeys, but decentralized rather than being centralized, where for each persona that you create in your wallet, the wallet will automatically create what's called an identity component on the ledger. Now that's anonymous. It doesn't contain any of your personal data. You can just think of it as literally just, it's an address. And all that thing contains is a single public key. And your wallet is the only thing that can produce the private key that goes with that public key. That's all that's in that identity component. So we don't even really talk to the general user. They don't have to think about identities. They just think of, my persona, my wallet. That's what I'm logging in with. But what actually happens is when you connect to the website and it says, hey, I need you to identify yourself and prove that you are this person. This is where your wallet can produce this cryptographic challenge where they sign this challenge package of data, sign it with that key, and the website then can go to the ledger, look at that address and go, oh, okay, you've signed with the proper key. I know that's actually you. And then you can log in. And what this means, because we use this on-ledger mechanism, it means that all the cool recovery stuff that we've got for accounts, we can also apply to that identity. So if you lose your phone, you can change your structure, you can change that owner key, and you get your logins back. We'll talk a little bit more about the multi-sig stuff a little bit later, I think. The other thing that I didn't talk about here is like, how do accounts fit into this picture? So accounts are just basically a piece of information, but it's not aligned to a particular persona. Your accounts are your accounts. So whenever you're connecting to a website and that website goes, hey, I need you to tell me about, I need an account address because I'm going to be doing something with you, or I need 5 accounts from you for some reason. In your wallet, you'll pick like, oh, okay, for that DApp, I am going to choose to share these account addresses with that DApp. That's nothing to do with your persona. It's just a choice you make for that DApp whenever you're connecting. And so this allows you to even change that. For example, if you imagine like a Radix version of Uniswap where it wants one account from you, you might do some transactions, and then later on you're going, you know what? Actually, I want to use a different trading account when I'm connecting with Uniswap. You change that in your wallet. Be like, next time I connect to Uniswap, I actually want to use a different account. You can do that. So it isn't sort of linked to your persona.
The page could just have a change my account, which would just cause them to just go back to the wallet and go, hey, give me an account again. Right? It wouldn't have to be
exactly.
I leave the relationship. Come back. This is go ahead.
Right. It's just a matter of requests. Like the website, every time you connect with your wallet, the website is just sending requests to your wallet. It's like, hey, could you please prove to me that you own a particular entity? Hey, could you please give me some personal information? Could you please tell me about some accounts? So it has the ability of changing those requests and asking new things in the future, and you'll get all the right questions being asked in your wallet to do what you want, basically.
Cool. As a convenience, the wallet remembers what you specified last time, but it's not like well, now forevermore, I shall provide this same thing.
So
right. So when we showed in the RadFi demo, when it's like, hey, when I came back to Collabify, it was like, the wallet says, I can see you want to connect with RadMat. It wasn't because Collabify was like, hey, please log in with RadMat. It was my wallet going, last time you connected here, you told it about RadMat. Do you want to do that again? And I can change that if I want.
So with Persona specifically, though, so if I have a wallet address of someone on Ethereum, for example, I can see what tokens they have in that address, for example. Now, in RadFi, Matt, you showed the example of like a shipping address, for example. Does that mean that as a user, I could go and look at your account on the Explorer or something and be like, I can now see what Matt's shipping address is? Is that publicly viewable or is it anonymous? How does that work?
Yeah, in fact, there's a couple of aspects. So, I mean, the thing you asked specifically is that, no, very clearly, like none of your personal data is ever on Ledger. That would be an insane thing to do. Even if you encrypted it, it's on the Ledger in a format that's sort of like at some point someone managed to decrypt that thing and Now your data is public. So all of the personal data is only held in your wallet, and it's shared directly to websites if you want to share it, if you give permission for that. Mm-hmm. So that stuff, all of that is completely anonymous. The persona on the ledger is just, like I said, an address with an owner key. Who knows who owns it? But another important aspect you didn't ask about, but I have heard this in the community, is like, well, can I link those things together? Like if I know if I know the persona address for somebody that they give me, can I tell what other personas they have or what accounts they control? And the answer to that is no. All of those things, all those the smart accounts and the identities on the ledger are independent of each other. Mm-hmm. And we actually, in the wallet, we carefully make sure that we don't use the same keys with all those things. We kind of do derived keys so that they all have independent keys that we're using. So you can't just look at the ledger and see, oh, I can see that one person owns all these things. Now, of course, if you connect to a website and you tell that website about multiple things, well, then it knows those things came from you. But it's a one-to-one relationship. No one can just survey the ledger and extract this information about you. You have pseudo-anonymity between mm-hmm. your different identities and accounts.
Cool. So on talking about like smart accounts and things like that, obviously one of the big things that we showed was the way that smart accounts are set up completely different to how accounts on like Ethereum or something like that set up. And one of the things that I know personally is really frustrating for other people as well is like getting random airdrops or like spam tokens sent to you is frustrating, but in some jurisdictions, getting airdrops can give you tax implications, and is really frustrating. So with a smart
and one person's frustration is another person's favorite thing they love about
exactly
crypto. Like people feel
some people like free money, right. But obviously that is, as you say, something that some people want, some people don't want. Like, how do smart accounts deal with those sort of situations? Is that something that users have input into and controls over, or is it like once your smart account is known about, that anyone can then do anything with it the same as they could if they know your Ethereum address?
And they do have control, and quite explicitly it can be in one of there's different modes that your account can be in. And the default mode is receive anything. Like if anything is sent to me, if the deposit method is called on my account, it will accept whatever those tokens are that were given to you. You can also put it in a mode of, I don't want to receive any token that I don't have already, right? This would be a reasonable one for like, look, I want to not receive airdrops, but once I've interacted with an asset, I'm happy to receive that asset in the future. And then another one is, I just have an allow list, like the following resource addresses, which is like what types of specific tokens I will permit, all others are forbidden. And then you can also do a deny list, which says I will accept everything except ones from these particular resource addresses because I'm tired of being spammed by this particular one, or something like that. So at any point, you can change that setting in your account, and the wallet will have the ability to do this quite easily for you. It knows how to build that transaction. Say, yep, we're switching the smart account mode to this other mode. And one interesting point about this is also, no matter what the settings of your account are, if you are executing a transaction yourself, as the account owner, you can always produce a badge that says, because my owner badge is present, we're overriding my settings of, say, don't receive anything but these 3 things on my allow list, right? You can override that at any time as long as you have your owner badge present in the transaction.
You can always deposit whatever you want to your own account.
Right. You do whatever you want, but if that's not present, like if someone's trying to just send to you, then if it's, hey, this resource is on the denial list, it will be blocked. Specifically about this, I want to address one thing that devs have been bringing up, which shows that people are engaging with how the manifest works. We love it, which is they go, hey, but if I'm doing this airdrop and someone has me on deny, will that cause the whole transaction to break? So we were completely aware that this would be a desired thing to do. And the answer is, if you are doing an airdrop type of activity, there is a special deposit method on the account. It actually will not make BetaNet, but will be in eventually, which is that basically it's a safe deposit method, which says, in the event that the account is not going to accept these tokens, just give them right back to me. This way the transaction doesn't fail. And so you have a safe route to say, I want to do an airdrop. I'm sending it out to 300 recipients. Well, maybe not all 300 will accept it, and that's okay. Some of those tokens will just come back to you, and in the manifest, you can just put them back in whatever account the airdrop's originating from.
So
Yeah, I love how physical this stuff is, by the way. It's like I always have these vivid visions in mind. Like imagine an airdrop being like, you got a bunch of people that are standing around a table and there's one's like, all right, I want to give tokens to everybody. And so you start pushing tokens out to everybody. And one person's like, nope, not interested. And all it does is just push them back across the countertop to you. So as long as your transaction manifest has the last line of it says, all right, anything left on the table, I'm just going to sweep and put back in my account again, which is kind of what you would naturally do in the real world. Then everything works. It's great. It's very intuitive.
So on that, Russ, you used wallet and account a couple of times. So is that permission set at the, like, if I say I don't want to accept it from any unknown address, for example, or any unknown asset type, is that for every single account I have, or can I set that on like an account by account basis?
It's all account by account. And when I said wallet in there, it's because your wallet software itself knows how to change these settings for accounts. So you can just say, for this one, I want receive all. For this one, I want only things I've seen before, etc.
Yeah, this is if for those of you watching the roundtable here, there's a bit of terminology that we want to like implant this in everyone's brain because the crypto ecosystem has been terrible at separating this. MetaMask has set this expectation that like wallet and account are kind of the same thing. Now, if you actually pay attention to MetaMask, they're not. Like it actually says MetaMask is your wallet and you can create accounts in it. That's the correct way of looking at it. But a lot of people have just kind of shortcutted it, be like, oh, my wallet address. Your wallet doesn't actually have an address. Your account has an address. So that's the way we use the terms, by the way. The Radix wallet is a piece of software which knows about all your accounts. And your accounts are actually the things that are on the ledger that have addresses and you can send tokens to it. So community members, please
repeat this to everyone you know thousands of times so we can stop having this. Send it to my wallet.
Fix the crypto world.
Stop saying that. Send it to my account, please.
So on the same way, like on the physical analogy, I guess that kind of makes sense similar to my physical wallet. Like I have my credit card in there, my debit card in there, and they are different accounts, but my wallet holds the different ones and they have different rules and amounts in them.
Right.
It's like, I mean, it's one of like many sections where you can have cash in different sections as a divider, right?
I think this is actually what maybe messes people up is because they imagine like a wallet that has money in it, but it's like actually you have this like mega wallet that's sort of like, oh, I've got, like you said, your wallet holds your account cards, and like each one of those account cards corresponds to an account you can do stuff with. But yeah,
and likewise personas, like my driver's license is in my wallet.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Cool. That all makes sense. So
please don't get too deep on this analogy, as it will certainly break down for some example.
my marketing hat's on. Simple marketing brain. But so obviously, if I've got this, it leads to the same kind of question. Like one of the things we showed off as in RadFi was the ability to recover your smart account. So if it's all on my phone and I lose my phone, I drop it down the toilet or something like that, have I lost all my money? And we showed off some things around like social recovery. But social recovery obviously is really convenient. But let's say, for example, I have no friends, or I don't trust any of my friends. They're all crazy. I think I don't want to touch them. And actually, I like living in the middle of a forest on my own, no outside contact. Am I then screwed if my phone breaks?
Of course not, right? This is the exact sort of thing we don't want to say. You have to have a Radix friend to do this for you. That's just one of many options. The system is extraordinarily flexible. And what we presented in RadFi was to show this is one good example flow of you could have a friend or you could specify multiple friends. You can also have services that provide this. For example, Instapass is going to provide, if you have an account with Instapass, and you would like to, and I don't mean a paid account, just like you have signed up with Instapass, and you want Instapass to serve as one of your recovery factors, the way recovery works is essentially you create a badge on the account that says, hey, this is one of my recovery badges. And Instapass is one of the people, is a service that will hold that badge for you. And then say, okay, if I want to go recover, and I say Instapass was the only one I specified, you could then go log into Instapass as normal and say, all right, I'm initiating recovery operations. I also have designated my friend Adam to be one of my recovery factors, right? You don't even have to involve any of those things because since it is just a badge, you could do something like, okay, for my recovery, let's think of it in the way that people who are used to doing seed phrase stuff think about it right now, where you do like, I've split it up into 3 parts and I've got, multiple safe deposit boxes in different banks and things like that. You could say, look, my recovery badge, I could have an account which is controlled by, say, a Ledger Nano device, and that's the the God key for that account is controlled by there. Put the recovery badge in the account controlled by that Ledger Nano, stick your Ledger Nano in a safe deposit box, and now you're still in full control. You haven't trusted anyone with anything. All these scenarios are totally possible. And I'm just describing the simple ones where a single badge is, your ability to do recovery. You can set up more complicated rules if you say, I need 2 out of the 3 of these badges to all be present and that sort of thing. All these things are possible. Obviously, this is overwhelming to the average user. So the wallet is going to sort of try to walk you through, like, here are some usual good setups, like use a friend or use 2 friends or use Instapass, and suggest you down those routes. But if you want to do something more complicated, I'm sure websites are going to spring up that have dApps that say, like, here's how to set up a manifest to do this specific recovery you're trying to do.
And is that recovery set, again, this is a common question I see, can I have different recovery systems for different accounts, or is it set for all of my accounts? How do I have that choice?
Yes, you can have different systems. You could choose to use the same one for all of them if you so wanted to. Getting into the bit on the anonymity thing, if let's say I had a particular YubiKey I used as a factor on 7 of my different accounts, somebody looking at the ledger who was quite knowledgeable about how things work could go, oh, I see this same public key is a factor on all these 7 different accounts. That must be the same person. So there's still a little bit of when you're using things like physical devices where it's going to be the same key everywhere if I don't derive new ones on them, you're going to have to apply a little bit of thought of this might then show that the same person owns these 2 accounts. And so there'll be a little bit of thought required on that. But you are 100% able to say every single account I have is going to use a different system for that. And that would be, I expect the majority of people who are in crypto now will probably go with that type of route. Mm-hmm. And then for the more mainstream user, this is probably easier to just say, look, I'm going to, if you say like use a hardware device as one of your emergency things, I'll just use that on my 2 different accounts I have. That's no problem to me.
Awesome. So kind of chiming off the back of that on recovery and like the different choices there, one of the other cool things you showed was obviously like using a YubiKey to authorize a transaction. So that is a multi-factor rule. So there's multiple factors in order to sign something as well as recovery. So if I've set my YubiKey, like I've got to tap my YubiKey to be able to authorize a transaction, is that across all of my accounts and I've now got to carry my YubiKey everywhere with me, or do I have additional controls on how I can utilize that per account?
Right. So so basically when you're talking about signing a transaction, it's kind of just a special case of what Russell was just saying, where we have this ability to define flexible rules. Those rules are definitely specific to each account if you want them to be. This is a really good thing to do. In fact, this gets into, there might be some very good reasons why you want to say, well, for this account, look, this is just my normal spending account. I'm just going to use, there's always going to be a key that is generated and held on your phone device itself, which is kind of like the convenient one. You can use it wherever you are. Use that with the account that doesn't have that much money in it because, it's no big deal. And again, you can still recover it. Even if you lose your phone, this is what the whole recovery thing that Russell was just talking about does for you. But you might have another account where you go like, well, look, this account, I'm not going to be using this when I'm on the go every day. I'm going to be sitting at my computer. It's got lots of money in it. I'm going to be doing, serious things with this account. That one, I require the YubiKey. And so I sort of leave the YubiKey at home. Now, if you want to be paranoid, you want to bring the YubiKey everywhere with you, you can do that too. You can set these things up however you want with multiple factors if you want to. This also gets into like people that if you really want to use a Ledger hardware device, you can set that up to be your primary factor where it's like, nope, every single signature must go through that hardware device. I don't even pay attention to the key that's generated on the phone. That's what I'm comfortable with. You could set that up. And in fact, you could set that up on all of the factors for even your recovery. Like one thing we've gotten from people is asking about like, well, where's my seed phrase? Like, I don't feel like I really own the account if I don't see the seed phrase. And basically says like, well, you don't have to worry about the seed phrase because, basically it can be stored on the phone, but you don't have to worry about losing it because we have this recovery mechanism. But if you want to go like, look, I don't want to mess with all this multi-factor stuff. I just want my seed phrase to control everything. And I want to write it down and I want to store it someplace. Cool. The wallet will let you do that too. It's basically just assigning that seed phrase to all of the roles on your accounts to do whatever you want.
So on that, say using your example of like a high value account potentially, so like an investment account, pension account or something like that, does that come into like the social aspect? So say, for example, I know my partner wife, whatever, and I'm like, this is our joint account for a mortgage payment, and unless we both, or it's our pension, I want my lawyer to have to sign it to be able to move it or something like that. Is that something I can enable?
Right. Yeah. This is something. I mean, this is you saw the you get into sort of multi-factor, multi-party sort of control of things. One of the cool things is that the smart account concept definitely enables that. It doesn't care. It's basically like, I'm looking for a collection of signatures. Those signatures can come from anything, and so those could come from potentially different people, which would enable multi-factor or multi-party account control, joint accounts, as you might say. That's not coming in V1 of the wallet, because we need to have the wallet. Like, actually, the wallet would then need to be able to sort of like, those two wallets need to be able to talk to each other, so you can sort of coordinate action with your partner or whatever it is. So there's a little bit of work there. But one of the cool things, it's all work at the app level rather than at the platform level. The platform is fully capable of doing all that kind of stuff. And in fact, if you're building your own automated system, so like, in our case, we are building systems like InstaBridge where we need to interact directly with the ledger and accounts. Well, we can just use these same systems. We can, we're not using the wallet, but we are using the ability of doing multi-factor stuff using smart accounts. It's quite powerful.
That was really cool. Really, really cool. So in this case, like one of the problems that a lot of people raise with having like on ledger data and on ledger assets and things like that is, say you buy some tickets to a show, using the example, or to a game like you showed at RadFi, for example, Matt. If I then say we decided not to do the system where we both have to sign to pay our amounts, and I'm like, hey, Adam, just pay me back the money for it. If I then pay you, as I would on Ethereum today, you could look at the address that sent that and see all of my assets. So it could be a case that I don't want you to see that I'm absolutely broke, or and that was my last $100, or actually I'm a multimillionaire. How
right.
Are we addressing that in the wallet and the smart account system, or is that just
this is
something
also,
we've got to live with?
This is also the coffee shop problem, right? It's like, you go and you buy a coffee, and then you spent that money out of the same account that you had your life savings in it, and then the coffee shop guy passes a message to a guy in the alley outside, goes, hey, that guy that just bought a coffee's got $1 million in his account, and he just paid with his phone. So
he has his factors on him right now.
He has his he just used them to buy a coffee. He's ready to go. Yeah. Right. So, there are a couple of different solutions at one level. So there is some nice things. This is one of the reasons why we make it really low friction for you to create multiple accounts and do stuff across multiple accounts from the wallet app, because we definitely think it's a good idea for people to kind of separate their accounts into different purposes. So, you saw in the RadFi demo that we had kind of like a spending account, and then there was a savings account, and the savings account requires a YubiKey. Well, if I'm going out and around, I leave my YubiKey at home. Doesn't matter if some guy, puts a gun to my head. It's like, look, look at the account. There's a factor here that I don't have on me. I just spent out of my coffee account. I'll give you all that money. I've only got $50 in there, but there you go. That's yours. But the savings account is still protected. So that's one level of it. Now, again, that's not perfect, right? People will point out, it's like, well, but if you're doing deep chain analytics, you can start watching where funds are going and figure out where the tokens are flowing, all that kind of stuff. That's all true. I think, in my opinion, there's a really big business opportunity here for just crypto in general, basically for services that provide sort of a regulatory compliant mixer service. Like the Tornado Cash thing isn't going to fly, because we see what happens with regulators on this. It's, you want something that's not a tool for money laundering, but there's no reason why a company couldn't set up a service that says, like, look, we will abstract you a little bit from payments. So when you're buying the coffee with crypto, it's kind of going through them such that there isn't this direct traceability back to all of the accounts, or the main account even that you wanted to spend out of. And one of the nice things is that with the transaction manifest and with delegated fees and with some of the cool features that we have on Radix, building that kind of service is way easier and way more. It's something you can integrate more directly with the wallet than you would be with MetaMask. So, it's something that I definitely think should exist to help address this problem.
Awesome. So excited about all of this cool stuff. Yeah, but please someone build that.
If you're watching, please someone start building this.
Right.
Yeah. Plug grants are now live as well. So if you've got a cool idea for that and an MVP, go to developers.radixdlt.com/grants-program. Definitely.
Softball.
Yeah. Again, marketing hat on. So, before we close this out, is there any other things that you've seen from the community or cool things that the wallet can do that you think people should be thinking about, or developers thinking about?
If this is, it's just like, why Web3? You said, if we're going to go there, this is the whole reason of our existence, right? It's the you have this situation right now where you have, if I want to do anything in the financial space, there's this very limited number of players, and it's extraordinarily difficult to break into that space. And those players are aware this is a lucrative space to be in, and they like the high walls everywhere, so that we can't have more people sitting at the table. The beauty of Web3 is it dramatically lowers the barriers to entry, that wall to have a seat at the table. So you reintroduce competitiveness into the financial space, which right now is sort of, yes, they're competing, but a lot of it is kind of artificial competition. Like, it's very small, slightly better in one area than the other one. This opens up options for you the same way that right now, if my music streaming service on the web is not doing well by me or is too expensive, I have other services I can go to. And if none of them are good, there's basically no barrier to entry for me to set up my own music streaming service on the web. We want to do the same thing for other classes of application, particularly financial ones. The other thing I love about it is just that, like, your digital stuff can now be more like physical stuff. You can have things that I own survive logging out. They're still real when I log out of somewhere because I hold them, I custody them, I take them where I want. It's not that, it's a database entry in the system, and if you want to get at it, they're going to have to let you at it by exposing some integration, or you have to use their system, their front end for it and all that. This completely flips the script where the user controls all their things and says, I will bring them to where I want. I will show them to who I want to. And anybody who wants to consume those assets, like the same way we had the example of the basketball ticket thing in the coffee shop in RadFi, where I don't have to go seeking the issuer of basketball tickets for the stadium. I can just say, well, the user holds that. If I want to do something with that, I'm free to do an integration with that. These are those kind of things that it will take a while for people to adjust in their heads that this is the way you now do things, that you don't have to enter into a contract with every entity that you want to take advantage of something they do. But these are one of those things that will have profound effects as the ecosystem starts to get built up and people get comfortable with this idea of I control my own stuff. The number of applications are just absolutely limitless for this.
So, I mean, everyone watching this will definitely be on board with that, and I think it's not a hard sell. I mean, self custodying your assets, your identity, being in control of that stuff is the premise of crypto and Web3 as a whole, and those things can be done elsewhere. I mean, like, I custody my own crypto assets, I control where I log in and things like that. I can go and do that. So if that's such a big goal, why haven't we seen mass adoption of it yet?
Right. Yeah. Well, this is what RadFi was about, was talking about the barriers to mainstream adoption. I think there's a little spiel I like talking about this. Like if you compare the traditional world to the Web3 world, it's like Russell was saying, it's like there was this problem. The problem being that if you want to build things around ownership, traditionally you had to have these large entities that had the ability of building those kinds of systems. If you're talking about finance, you're talking about banks. But it can be other things as well. So it's like, you think of the traditional banking experience, it's very siloed. It's like, I create an account with this bank. That bank has their own app. They expose certain features to me. All of my assets stay there. And if I ever want to move between banking apps, it's like this big thing. It's like, well, you have to transfer between those, and those two banks have to have integrations together. And it becomes very frictionless, or frictionful, I guess. So the big thing about Web3 was that it broke that problem apart. It kind of goes, no. What we need to have is a single ledger where you can seamlessly, like, the default is things connect together. The default is that assets live in the same environment and we can connect things together. However, there's another part of the problem. It's like, how do you access those systems? And I think this is a lot of where the problem comes into. This is why we don't see the explosion of Web3 today, because if you look, again, compare those two things. If you look at the traditional banking world, the user experience is okay. People like this is, decades of refinement and building stuff. It's sort of like, I understand, like, I can get a bank app. They ask me 3 questions. I log in. I've got a nice user interface on my phone. It's understandable. They protect me. Yeah, I'm stuck within their walled garden, but they give me a nice user experience. It's very understandable and I can use it. Well, basically Ethereum and MetaMask and so forth, like blew the bottom part of it apart. Like, now you can connect anything. Your assets are universal. But to do that, the sacrifice they made was like, all right, your account is a private key and you're going to hold it and you've got full responsibility. Welcome to DeFi. And the user experience was completely out the window. It's basically like, all right, if you're going to build a user experience, you got to build it around that as the assumption. It's like, you're going to have this private key and it controls everything. And your accounts are entries and a bunch of balance books on different smart contracts. So basically what Radix is trying to do, the reason why we think we can be successful is we take those inherent benefits of Web3, this interoperability and interconnectedness stuff, but build a stack that allows you to build an accessible, understandable user experience on top of it that actually makes it relevant to people. Right now, it's like you can talk to your blue in the face about all the benefits of competitiveness and interconnectedness to people, but if their first experience is MetaMask, doesn't matter. Like it literally doesn't matter. It has to be understandable to people.
Anything to add to that, Russ?
I think it's the same thing. It's way too intimidating right now. No matter how much you might say intellectually, what you're saying is cool, but when you put the UX in front of me, no thanks. And then, oh, by the way, let me talk about securing your seed phrase. I mean, if they weren't already scared from this, what is this thing what do you mean sign? What am I doing when I sign? If you add in this seed phrase thing on top, by the way, you must protect this perfectly, else you lose everything, or it gets stolen if someone else gets it. That's where it's like, this is way too hairy for me. I'm out. So if you can resolve those things, which I think we have done, it's suddenly people go, okay, now I'm at the table. I'm interested. And now I will engage with it. They're not going to jump straight to, cool, I'm taking everything out of banks and doing it straight away. I don't need that. I need you to engage with it. It was, I think, Adam, you've said this a few times. Like with the internet, it was like, let me just get you connected. Maybe it was Pierce said it, I can't recall. But it's a good analogy of the struggle with getting people on the internet was just, let me just get you connected so you can see one page, so you can feel how this can help you out. This is the same thing. We'll make it so now it doesn't feel so intimidating. Go put $100 in and go start figuring out how this stuff works.
I think a lot of that as well
like
is
that it gives decentralization a bad name. Like it's a terrible thing for crypto. Like with FTX freshly in mind, it's like, to use the analogy that Russ just said, like the early internet era, for those of you who were around then, it was like the internet for most people in the beginning was AOL, which was like kind of the internet. It was basically like, you're going to sign to this thing that's technically on the internet and it kind of connects out to it, but it's like you're going through this party that's sort of, negotiating your connection to the internet. It wasn't until we got a little bit later that people we made it accessible. It's like, oh, anybody can just get a modem. They can actually get on the internet itself, directly pull up a web browser, do whatever they wanted to do there. We're kind of in that era for crypto, and it sucks because FTX or Binance or whoever it is, they show up and they're kind of like, crypto is amazing. You should do this. It's decentralization and full control, but you're actually going to give up that decentralization and full control so you can use our system, so you can actually have a user experience that makes sense to you. That's why people use this stuff. That's why people are in FTX.
But trust us, we'll do a good job.
Right, exactly. It's like people aren't on FTX because they love SBF. They're on there because it's like, well, at least I can get done what I want to do there and I understand how it works. If we can just solve that usability problem, it's like decentralization doesn't have to be a bad word for people anymore. People kind of go it's like, people look at decentralization right now as being like, oh, hard. This is for tech geeks and people that have they're crypto nerds. Like that doesn't have to be the case.
I think for me, the big thing is you can be full on the ideology of something, but if the barriers or the downsides to it are so impractical for day-to-day use, it doesn't work. So again, at RadFi, the Tesla example is great. I think most people, if you go, hey, here's an electric car, it's faster, it's good for the planet, you're not using fossil fuels, it's cheaper to run. They're like, yeah, this sounds great. I'll go get one. And they're like, yeah, just one caveat. You can only go 100 miles and then you've got to sit at a service station for 3 hours to charge it up. They're like, well, I travel to and from work and it's 103 miles to do the round trip and I don't fancy sitting around for an hour there. They may want to, they may see.
And you didn't actually have access to service stations either. It was you can only travel 100 miles and the only place you can charge it is at home.
Yes.
And the car's really ugly. And doesn't
and the car's really ugly.
There are many compromises.
The G-Wiz has often been mentioned internally as it was a good idea, but no one wants to be seen driving around in a G-Wiz. Right.
The American version was the EV1. If anyone remembers that, it was this tiny little pod that you could drive around in for 50 miles.
Cool. Well, that's been really helpful. I do want to say just before we close out, thank you everyone who's tuned into RadFi, watched all the stuff there and been asking all these great questions. It's really exciting. If you're a developer, now is definitely the time to really start digging in because we're really close to, obviously BeatNet's just come out. We're months away literally from mainnet upgrade, where people are going to be able to come and start using your things. So dive in if you haven't. Developers.radixdot.com. Go and have a go. If you're a user, come and join the community. If you've got more questions like this, we love to hear them. We're all about to answer, as well as great people in the community as well who can answer many of these things. So on that, Matt, thank you very much for joining. Russell, thank you very much for joining. And we will see you all in 2023.